because this methodology aims to be a multi-criteria assessment. These are the three main characteristics of this methodology. Here you have a summary of several of the benefits that the company can obtain when applying this methodology, and these are also the goals for applying such a methodology. We divided them in analytical goals, managerial goals, and goals that can contribute to the whole society. So, in the first step, we see, for example, that the company can gain insights about their internal operations and value chain, so the company can have more information about what's going on in their side, but also in the provider's side. All this information allow the company or the organization to identify which are the hotspots at the company and the value chain. And this will allow the company to understand risk and impact reduction opportunities. And of course, the framework of organizational LCA can also be used to track the environmental performance of the company over years. And all this analytical information will support the organization when making decisions. So it will support decision making with new criteria regarding environment. It can also promote new or improve organizational procedures for the company, like, for example, new data collection systems or improved data collection systems. It can be the basic information for environmental communication with stakeholders. Some of the measures that can be taken after OLCA application could also reduce some of the operational costs of the company, and can be also, some of this information can be also used with marketing purposes. And all these changes at the end can reduce the pressure on the environment and can also promote or enhance the use of this type of tools by other stakeholders. Here you have, regarding the 11 case studies that are included in the guidance that Matthias already presented you, here we have some of the testimonials or some of the some experience or ideas from some of the companies regarding these benefits for the company. For example, Mondelez said that it's impossible for an organization, for a company, to really perform all the potential measures to reduce environmental impact. So it's very useful for the company to be able to identify hotspots and really be efficient on the measures taken. Also, it's very important, as Unilever said, that it's very important that we also test or we also work for the whole value chain, because, as we said, in most of the cases, the value chain or the use case of the product of a company are the most impacting steps in the life cycle of the product. This information can be used for internal use, but also for external communication, and we can also to have a multi-criteria approach. It means to have information about different impact aspects, environmental aspects. It also helps the organization to identify new topics and new issues where they can act. Another issue is that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to OLCA. This means that it's also not all the products are the same, and they really depend on the type of product, and it depends if it's a product or a service. a good or a service, etc. So, and in the case of an organization, this is even more even more important, because every company or every type of organization that we can think about, we need to have a different definition, not definition, but a different modeling when assessing organizational LCA. So in this guidance, we will find many recommendations to apply and to implement this methodology. But there is not only one way to do it. There are more than one proposal, and also each organization can tailor their own way to assess their impact. So trying to address this fact, at the guidance, we define or we present what we call the experience-based pathways. And the idea behind them is that it's quite likely that the organizations that decide to apply organizational life cycle assessment have previously applied other environmental tools. So our idea here was to give some recommendations or some hints about how the company can use the information and the experience that they already have, because they apply other methodologies, how they can benefit from all the experience and data when applying organizational LCA. So here you can see the three main pathways that we define. That, for example, when a company, pathway 2, for example, when a company has already applied product LCA to several of their products, of course, this information about the value chain and about the processes and about the stakeholders that are involved can help when modeling the whole company, and also even the specific data collected can also be included in this organizational LCA and can help. We will see some examples, and we will see this more in detail afterwards. Yes, very briefly, and as we said, we published one of the papers we published is addressing this comparison of product LCA and organizational LCA and how are they different. But here we would like to make a short presentation about that. So, as we said, most of the principles and requirements from the product LCA ISO, the ISO 44 and the ISO 14, apply also for OLCA, with sometimes some minor adaptations, most of the times regarding wording and regarding the organizational context. But the main idea of most of the principles and requirements applies also for organizational LCA. So both methodologies are of iterative nature. Both of them need to define a reference unit and the system boundaries. Both of them follow, as we said, a life cycle approach, need a lot of data. We should define the data quality requirements. They are focused on environmental issues, etc. So many of the principles and requirements are as it was already mentioned, both methodologies are complementary, because in different senses, but because both of them can be applied to the same system, of course, at the product level or at the organizational level, at different levels, but both of them can provide useful information to the company. Because one unique product LCA does not provide all the information to the company to make decisions, strategic decisions, but provides very specific data for that specific product, and can help to improve the specific product. So these two methodologies are answering different questions, but both questions or both answers can support the company in different ways. And here you can see, here we have definition, or these are the main elements of the scope, both for product LCA and organizational LCA. I will, of course, now define each of these elements for organizational LCA, but as you can see here, the main element or the subject of the assessment is not the product anymore, but now it's the organization. Then we can see that we have in product LCA we have functional units, and for organizational LCA we need to define the reporting organization and the reporting flow, and these two elements can be seen as something similar or something equivalent to functional unit and reference flow, although the subject is different and there are some differences, but we can see these different elements like equivalence on the new methodology. Yes, so I will now move to the following part. So if you have any question or comment, please raise your hand or write it at the chat. Otherwise, I will continue with the explanation about the technical framework. Maria Rosa is typing. Let's wait. There are more than one. Writing. You can also try to speak if you want. You can raise your hand and then use the microphone if it's working. Okay, that one. Let's see if we get any of the questions. If you're, because maybe when I switch off your audio, you cannot see any more the microphone and you have to activate it again. This is maybe the problem why you cannot. Okay, 1 second. We have here one question. One question says, could you go deep about supporting activities? Yes, sure. We will, now in the technical framework, I will explain the different activities that should be included in an organizational LCA, and I will give some details about supporting activities. Is it recommended to apply simultaneously both approaches? No. In this case, the road testing is focusing on organizational LCA, and it is not necessary that a company has previously applied other environmental tools. Of course, one of the pathways, the potential pathways is also that the company has no experience with these tools. But our idea is that if companies have already made an effort and invest resources on assessing part of the environmental impacts at different levels, what we wanted is to support them to use this information and this experience to apply the methodology. You don't have to start from the beginning, but of course, if a company starts from the beginning, that is perfectly fine, and a company doesn't need to apply both LCA and organizational LCA. They can be applied separately or they can be applied together and then complement the information. Okay, of course, if a company, here we have one question, it says, how will LCA and organizational LCA differ if a company has just one product? This is a good question. Of course, it will be more or less the same, but in many cases, in product LCAs, we are not taking into account these supporting activities, like employees, travel, or research activities, etc. So it depends on which type of activities this company is doing related with the production of this product. it can be different. I mean, in general, it will be the same, but only if the product LCA is also including this additional or supporting activity. But it would be similar. That's true. But there are not many companies that are, that are producing really only one product. Maybe they have only one type of product, but maybe they are using different sizes or not exactly the same content. I mean, of course, sometimes there are some cases where you only have one product. But this is why we said that organizational LCA is very organizational specific. So there is not one size fits all, because there are many cases that you can imagine and many options and types. This is why also we are looking for this role testing and also looking for different types of companies, different sectors, different sizes within the role testers, because we also really want to show how the methodology can contribute to this different range of companies. There is another question. Is there any equivalent financial assessment that can be paired with the OLCA results? I am not an expert on financial assessment, but of course maybe we can find a financial assessment that is also trying to take into account this idea of the whole life cycle, and then they can somehow be complementary. But maybe Matthias wants to add something.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think in the financial side there are different approaches, but maybe none of them is really perfectly matching OLCA. On the, so to say, on your upstream, as soon as you purchase a good as a company, there more or less implicitly you have also the cost of the whole supply chain upstream, but the downstream cost of the users and so on, because different actors carry those costs, usually you don't have such a comprehensive assessment. There are, of course, some organizational approaches which try to calculate kind of the sustainability value of the chain and so on, but in a strict sense, I'm not aware of it. But just like product LCA can be used to calculate life cycle costing, I think once this is done, OLCA is more established. I think the material and energy flows which you collect there, they can of course also be used, not then to translate them only into environmental impact, but potentially in the future also to an economic side of the system.
Okay, thanks. So, okay, we'll have. Okay, so if there are any additional questions, I will move forward to the following part. Yes, so typing again. Let's take Yes, Rob said that they would like to use this potential new economic organizational life cycle assessment as their pricing strategy. Yeah, we hope that in the future we can have this option of addressing the three dimensions of sustainability from a product and from an organization perspective, and we are currently working on two of that dimension. Okay, so let's move. Here in this section, in this part of the presentation, I will more or less follow the 4 steps of an LCA, because organizational LCA is following the same 4 steps of an organizational LCA. First, goal and scope, inventory assessment, and then impact assessment and interpretation. Main differences between product LCA and organizational LCA were found at goal and scope and impact assessment and inventory assessment, and this is why I will mostly focus on these two parts. So Rosa was typing, but it seems. Okay, so first of all, I will start, as I said, with. Okay, sorry, I will have here one question. Okay, and maybe with these more specific questions about the methodological framework, I will now go through some of these issues, and then at the end of the section or within the section, if you consider that your questions were not addressed or you need more detail on about any of them, then maybe we can come back to that issue. Okay, thanks. Okay, so in this case, for organizational LCA, it's very important to define properly all the elements of the scope. In the case of product LCA, this was necessary, or this is required in order to achieve comparability between products or between different scenarios for the same product LCA. In the case of organizational LCA, as we said, the comparison of different organizations is not considered as one of the outcomes when the methodology is used. But the definition of this scope will support or will respond to transparency motivations in order to be able to reproduce the results, and also because we will somehow compare, but not compare between two different organizations, but to compare the company along the years if we want to apply performance tracking. So it's necessary to define exactly what we are assessing. Okay, so first step as in product LCA is to define what is the goal of the study. So I already introduced some of the potential goals that the company can or the organization can have to apply OLCA. So it's necessary to set why is OLCA being applied, what is the intended use, who will use this result, and what do we want to set, what we want to do with this result. And as we already mentioned more than one time, it's necessary that when we are setting the goals of the assessment, that we clearly state and ambiguously state that the results are not intended to be used in comparative sessions, intended to be disclosed to the public. And regarding the other elements of the scope, here again we have a figure where we describe these new elements for organizational LCA. Apart from these elements, other common issues with product LCA need to be defined. Here I will only focus on reporting organization, reporting flow, and system boundaries because they are different from product LCA. But of course, when making this type of assessment, we should also clarify which are going to be the impact assessment methods, the allocation assumptions, data quality requirements, limitations, etc. So here you have, as I said, a figure where we represent the three main elements of the scope. We have reporting unit and system and the system boundaries. So let's go step by step. Okay. First of all, here you have. We are focusing on organizational LCA. So let's first define what is an organization and what we understand by an organization. I sometimes say company because most of the organizations that are applying organizational LCA are usually companies. But a company can be many other things apart from a company. So it can be a public organization, can be an institution, can be a corporation, can be an authority. So many other types of organizations can also, of course, apply organizational LCA. So now let's explain what is this idea of the reporting unit. So as you had in that figure, we need to define reporting unit. The reporting unit, the idea is to define exactly what we understand by the organization. What is exactly this organization in the specific assessment. So according to the ISO 4072, reporting unit is the quantified performance expression of the organization under study to be used as a reference. In the guidance document, in order to make it more easy or to specify better the definition of the organization under study, we decided to define two elements that correspond to the main two aspects that need to be defined. First, we have a reporting organization that focuses on the description of this organization, and then we have the reporting flow that focuses on the quantification of the portfolio of this organization. So let's go step by step. To define the reporting organization, that according to the definition the guidance is the organization under study to be used as a unit of analysis. When the main aim of the reporting organization is to define who is the organization under study, and to do that we need to define three main issues. The first one is we need to define the subject of the study. And the subject of a study may be the reporting organization per se. It means the whole organization, including all the sites and all the activities and all the different regions that may be involved or may have sites of this company. Or in certain cases, although it is recommended that the whole organization is assessed, there are certain situations where the organization may decide to only assess one part of this organization. In any case, this definition should be current and should really correspond to a logic part of an organization. I mean, it is not, this potential definition or consideration of only one part of the organization is not intended to, for example, that the organization decides to take one site from each region and only the sites that have, I don't know, for example, less impact. The idea is to, for example, one option may be to consider all the sites of a certain region, or consider only one product line or part of sector of the company, because as I mentioned before, in certain situations it makes sense. For example, if the company decides to apply organizational LCA, but it considers that start with the whole organization from the beginning, it's too much, the company may decide to take first pilot part of the company. Or if the company, for example, has very different sectors, or these different regions are really working as different legal entities and with very different management systems, the company can decide also to assess only one of these parts, or one of these parts can be who is promoting this assessment. And if they decide to apply the organizational LCA, and they cannot like promote or this they invite the whole organization, but the whole organization is not yet prepared to apply organizational LCA. This smaller part can still apply organizational LCA because the definition of organization also includes smaller part. But in the reporting, in this now that we are testing during the role testing, for us, of course, it would be interesting that you try to assess the whole organization and that you do your best to consider all your sites and all the regions involved. But in some cases, we can understand and we can discuss that we need to define a smaller system. Okay, this is the first element or things that we need to define when defining reporting organization, the subject of study. The second part is that we need to define the consolidation method. It is necessary to explicitly and systematically define which sites are to be considered in the study. When the company has other legal entities inside the company and there are different relations and the company has both other companies and this type of situation, is it necessary to define exactly what we mean by the organization, and it is necessary to define or to select which consolidation method we will use. It means if we will use equity share or financial control or operation control. Here we have a bit more detail of each of these consolidation methods. In the first option, financial control, the organization includes units over which it has the ability to direct the financial and operation policies. And for the operational control, it's the same, but it's when the company has can control the operation and the main decisions of the company, maybe not from a financial point of view, but from an operational point of view. These two consolidation methods are preferred from the point of view that when the company or after the organizational LCA is applied and we can identify which are the main or the most efficient or important measures, it will be easier for the organization to apply these decisions to those facilities over which the company has financial or operational control. And another option is the equity share. In this case, the burdens or the impact of each of the sites are allocated or are assigned to the organization according to the shares that the company has over this specific site or this company that is depending on the big company. Okay, and in this option, this consolidation method, it best represents the financial risk of the company. Okay, so we have, regarding the definition of the reporting organization, we already described how to define the subject of a study, how to define the consolidation method, and the first step is to define which is the reference period. It means to define the specific time for which the organization is being studied. Usually it is one operational cycle, usually it's 1 year. It can be one natural year, or it can, or not. It depends how the company is defining the operational cycle. As I said, usually it's 1 year. Okay. Then we have, if you remember, we were in the ISO, the reporting unit should be defined, and at the guidance we decide to define the reporting unit by defining the reporting organization and the reporting flow. Now I will define the reporting flow. As I said, it's the measure of the output from the reporting organization during the reference period. And the portfolio is basically the range and the quantities of goods and services offered by an organization. There are several ways, there are several types of ways to define this reporting flow and to quantify this portfolio. So we can quantify per unit, the units that were produced or the services that were provided, per weight of this product, per volume, or also it can also be quantified in non-physical terms like economic revenue or number of employees. It will depend on the how big is the portfolio of organization, which type of products they have, which type of accountancy and tracking of the production of the products they have and the data they need. Okay, and as in product LCA, we also need to define the system boundary. It represents the limits that define which are the operations of the reporting organization and the resource use and emissions associated with them included in the study. So what we need is to define which are the set of, we need to define a set of criteria that specify and limit which are the operation processes and activities that are part of the system that is being assessed. The company or the organization can decide if in theory the company or the organization should assess the whole life cycle from cradle to grave. So it means including all the providers and also including use phase and end of life of all the products of the company. But in certain cases, for example, when the company is producing goods that it's not going to be directly used by the consumer, but it's an intermediate product that can be used for many different types of, for many different other products. For the organization, it could be very, very difficult to model or to define which is the use phase or the end of life of the product. So in this case, for example, it can make sense to only focus on cradle to gate and only assess the impact until the gate of the company. Okay, then all the resources used and emissions to air, water, and soil that are linked with all the activities of the company can be divided in direct and in indirect. So those activities that are taking place in sites that are owned or controlled by the reporting unit. Here we are again have the idea of the consolidation method. So depending on the type of consolidation method that we have selected in at the reporting organization definition, we will see, or we will decide and put the limit of what exactly are direct and indirect activities, and also which are the direct and indirect resources used and emission derived from these activities. According to the ISO, all direct activities shall be included in the assessment. And then the indirect activities and the linked with indirect resources use and emissions are consequence of the activities of the reporting unit that are not occurring at the start of the company, but are due to the activities of other organizations that are related with the value chain of the organization, that are not directly occurring at the site of the company. And they can be upstream or downstream of the value chain. So they can be related with the activities of the providers, or can be related with the activities related with consumption and end of life. According to the ISO, again, all indirect upstream activities, it means all the activities related with the provider, shall be included in the assessment also. And regarding all the indirect downstream activities, as I said afterward, before, a company can decide not to include this consumption and end of life activities related with the products of the organization. So this is why here we said that these downstream indirect downstream activities should be included. What means that they can, the company, if the reasons are good enough, the organization can decide not to include all these downstream activities. In this picture, you can see some examples of activities, of the three types of activities, of direct activities, and then also upstream and downstream indirect activities. We will now see also some more details. Afterwards, when we start with the inventory assessment, I will also go through with more detail through all of these different activities, and I will provide more specific examples. So here you have, as we said, we are going to use two of the examples or two of the case studies at the guidance to explain some of the concepts that I have just presented. So first of all, we will see the example of Accor. Accor is a hotel group organization, and here we have the goal and scope definition for the assessment of Accor environmental performance. So these are the main objectives that Accor had to apply something similar to organizational LCA, because as Matthias said, the case studies that are included in the guidance were not directly applying organizational LCA, because organizational LCA concept was not already like proposed officially, but they were applying similar methodologies that are inspired on a similar concept or on a similar idea. So these are the goals why OLCA decided to apply organizational LCA. So they wanted to have a comprehensive view of all the environmental impacts of the company. They wanted to identify which were the main environmental impacts between the hotspots over the entire life cycle, and which were the key components of the supply chain having more environmental impact on the groups, on the whole groups, on the more contribution to the whole impact of the company. This helps them to identify opportunities to improve the environmental performance and to decide which were the more effective of the priority actions. This raised they also wanted these results to raise the awareness among employees regarding environmental aspects, and they also used all this information to communicate on a core environmental impact for internal and external. We have definition of the specific elements that I have defined before, now for this specific example. So for the reporting organization, a board defines the reporting organization as the worldwide internal group over 1 year, considering the operational control approach. Regarding the reporting flow, the way they define their portfolio, it was the specific number of overnight stays, breakfast served, and meal served as a representative of our basic services offering in a certain year. So they define the three main services that they were offering, and that were closely related to other of the services they were providing. I mean, when you are considering the service overnight stay, you are already taking into account other type of, all the related services with staying one night at one hotel. So, as I said, every year they will define the specific number for each of these services, and this should be standard reporting flow. Regarding the system boundary, they decided to include they defined three main phases. The construction of the buildings of the hotel, the use phase that included the accommodation service, the hotel, all the restaurants, and the management of the hotel, and finally the end of life of all the buildings and all the products that they are using. And defined 11 activities that within these three phases they defined 11 activities and consider the whole life cycle for each of these specific activities. The other example is Unilever, and the goal for applying this methodology, what they call printing, it was to external reporting of Unilever's footprint and also to fulfill internal management needs. What they did or what they wanted was to define a baseline situation. So the first year or the first time they applied this methodology, it's considered as the base production process, but also all the other activities that are not directly involved in the production, but that are important for the company to work. They are related with management, with marketing, with design, with research, etc. They are often not considered in product LCA. Most of the cases in product LCA, only those activities that are directly related with the product, with the production, are taken into account. And here you have some examples: research activities, traveling and commuting of employees, the provision of capital equipment, working environment related activities, etc. We have one question. Yes, here we have one question: how can we conciliate these results with CSR? This is partly assessed in the guidance, and some ideas are given regarding this on how organizational LCA can complement, because we think that the information that we are going to get will be of very high quality, because we will be able to say things and to communicate results for the whole value chain. So we think that organizational life cycle assessment can really contribute to CSR, and also the information that the company may already have and have collected with CSR can be also used, or can guide the definition of the activities and the stakeholders that are involved in the organizational life cycle assessment. Yes, so let's come back to the slide. Yes, so we think that as the company or the organization should try to include these supporting activities as far as possible. Particularly these activities, these supporting activities, can be really relevant or important for those organizations that are providing services and that don't directly have a high impact due to the processing, because they don't have processing, because they are providing services. So all these complementary activities can be very relevant on that case. And we think that if the company wants to have a big picture or a very broad picture of the organization and of the activities, and want to have more alternatives to improve and to decide which are the best measures, taking also into account these activities can promote other mitigation alternatives that are not usually taken into account. And here we have other also relevant activities like the use phase and the end of life. I already discussed a bit about that, but the problem is that because use phase and the state of a product regarding end of life is very product dependent. When the company is producing many different types of products in many different countries, etc., it can be a bit difficult to model this use phase in a meaningful way. But still, we think that if possible, the organization should try to make the effort and maybe to divide the products in type of products, and try to have a general idea of which type of use case can consider for each of these products, and have a first idea. And as I said, then maybe in the future can try to improve this data. Here we have some recommendations regarding sources of data. As I said, the company can decide to define representative product and type, representative product or type of users to model the whole portfolio. You can assume product design specifications or product instructions. You can perform consumer surveys, or you can use statistical data, for example, regarding end of life and which type of phase has each of the materials of the product you are selling, then you can also use the statistical data. And finally, regarding the activities, also mention that environmental offsetting, offsetting activities that are those activities that try to compensate resource use or emissions that are occurring at the company's site, that these activities are trying to reduce emissions in another place to compensate this, the own impact of the company. These type of activities are not supported by this guidance and shall not be aggregated with the organization results. But if the organization is investing on these type of activities and want to reflect this in the report, it's possible to include them, but as a separate result. And also, it's very important that the company clearly defines how the calculations and how the offset, the impacts that are offset were calculated, particularly when we are assessing more than one impact category, and then it's you need one model for each of the impact categories. Okay. Regarding data quality, it's strongly recommended that the company use some kind of quantitative or qualitative data quality test or check, or they define some. Yes, I was asked to go to the previous slide, and I guess now we will get questions. Just 1 minute. The question is, would that be the case for recycling internally? No, this is another thing. What I am thinking about is, for example, if the company decides to invest, in the picture, if the company decides to invest in the in reforestation in other countries, for example, because then they can consider that all the CO2 that is captured by these trees is emissions that the company is helping to reduce. This is the type of activities that I'm referring to when I say offsetting. So it's, but if it's something internal of the company that decides to recycle I understand that you refer to recycling the product at the end of life of the product. This is, of course, an activity, direct activity of the company, and it's not related with offsetting. Offsetting is always happening in a totally different organization, and even usually in other countries. I hope this was clear enough. Okay, I think it was. Yes, so again, regarding data quality, it is strongly recommended that you try to verify the quality of your data with quantitative or qualitative indicators. As it is recommended for product LCA, you should collect data of sufficient quality to fulfill the goals of the study. And as I already said, it is recommended that you use direct specific data for direct activities. So this is why higher uncertainty for indirect activities is acceptable, and after a certain point is expected. Here you have a list of potential criteria that you could use to prioritize data collection efforts. This means that regarding all the indirect activities, that according to the guidance, you should include all of them, which means that you can decide to take out of your system some of them. Here you have a list of potential criteria that you could use to define which of these activities are not going to be taken into account. Of course, first recommendation is that you try to use environmental impact data. This means that you try to, for example, use previous studies in similar sectors or with some of the products of the company that prove that those specific activities are not having a very high contribution on the impact of the company, and this is why the results are not going to be very different if you take them into account. Here you have also some ideas or some proposal of sources of data for specific data sources and for generic data sources. We have, of course, for specific data sources, we can get data directly from the process or plant level. I mean, we can get data from the sites of the company. It can be also from bills and stocks of the consumption of different materials and energy, etc., of the company. Emissions that have been reported to third authorities. We can also get data by measuring. For example, if we don't have data regarding the emissions of a certain process, if we have the resources, we can also measure them by mass balance. We can try to define, for example, which are the emissions of a certain process. Or the analysis of some waste or products to know the composition, etc. These are only some examples. Of course, we can also find others. We have another question here. Are any software we can apply? There is no any specific software that you can apply, but up to a certain point you can try to use available LCA software like OpenLCA, SimMapro, Gavi, and build your own model according to organizational perspective and not product perspective, or you can create your own Excel sheet. But no, I really think that you could use this LCA software to perform it. Of course, it will be more complex than only one product LCA, but yeah, unfortunately there is not yet any specific software for organizational LCA, as we are, as you know, at the beginning of its implementation and preparation. Yes, and then we have here also a list of potential genetic data we can use. Mainly we can use data from industry average data, from literature or scientific papers, of course from life cycle inventory databases, other type of databases, from statistics, from average, from financial data, etc. Okay, and now let's move when we define how are we going to collect the data and how are we going to model the company, it means how do we understand the company and the different parts of the company. We identified three main data collection approaches. One option, what we call bottom-up approach, is that when we collect the data, we collect data for each of the products or services of the reporting organization. It means we perform a kind of LCA for each of the products or services of the company, plus all the supporting activities. Sum them up according to the amount of that they are providing, according to the amount at the portfolio, and this will give us the result of the organizational LCA. This is one of the options. We will also see afterwards how this can be implemented. Another option is what we call the top-down approach, and it goes just on the other direction, and the idea is to consider the whole organization and then the specific activities that are taking place at the whole organization or at each of the sites of the organization, taking into account, of course, all the life cycle, all the inputs and outputs of each of these activities, and put them together, and then also have the results for the organizational life cycle assessment. And then we have a third approach that is just like a mix of the other one, so the mix of bottom-up approach and top-down. Let's see more detail about each of them. Regarding the bottom-up approach, it means the approach that goes from product LCAs to the top. Of course, ideally, the recommendation would be that in this case you should perform product LCA for absolutely all the products of the company. But in certain cases, this may not be possible. For example, when the company has hundreds of products and they are different. So the company may decide not to assess every individual product, but at least the company should make sure that the results and the products that are selected are representative enough and that the assessment is comprehensive enough. So here we propose two potential ways to dealing with this situation where the company, for example, has many products and it's not possible for the company to assess each of them. So one option is to define clusters or families of products and then to identify one representative product for each of these families, or even to define one product that is not real, but it's an average of all the products in this cluster or family. So to define a proxy product. And then the idea is that the company will only assess these representative products, and then consider that all the other products in the family are having exactly the same impact. So the company would take the amount of products produced in this specific
employee commuting differ if a company has, say, 9 products or, say, 5 products?
Sorry, but I was not able to understand you. There is also a bit of noise. Could you please repeat the question?
I'll try to key in here.
Let's wait 1 minute because the Shankar is typing something. Okay. Okay, here we have the question. Is there any recommended means to normalize other activities? How will employee commuting be different if a company has 1.9?
1.9 is 9 products and 2.
Yes, employee commuting would be probably an independent activity that the company has to assess. This is why in this picture we consider that first the company is assessing each of the product LCAs, taking into account the inputs and outputs that are linked to the processing and to the production of these products. But of course, apart from that, the company will also have other activities, as I said, that they are not directly related with the production, but that are also occurring at the company. So, for example, as you said, employee commuting. So this will not be directly related with the production and won't be related, it won't affect if they produce 3 or 9 products or 1,000. It will change the amount of employees they have. But I don't know if is answering my question. Yes. Okay. Thanks to you for the question. Yes. So this was one option to use this bottom-up approach. And the other option is to use the top-down approach, where, as I said, the whole activities, each of the activities of the company are identified and modeled. Okay, and then the company can decide to assess at the same time all the activities of the company, or then to focus in each of the sites of the company and assess the activities for each of the sites. Here you have some recommendations regarding the data sources and the different options to model the activities of the company, depending on if they are direct or indirect activities. And let's go to the example of Accord. In this case, they use a kind of top-down approach, and as I said, they defined 11 activity categories. For each of these categories, was assessed in each of the sites or of the hotels of Accord. And for each of these activity categories, they define different types of data. First, they define key activity data, referring to the flows involved in the operation of the hotel. So we have general activity data, for example, the number of hotels, the number of rooms, the number of meals of breakfast, etc. And then also environmental activity data. This means the consumption of water, food, electricity, etc. for the whole hotel per room or per breakfast. Okay, and they use all this data to model the inventory of each of these activities. And then they also define what they call environmental factors that describe the intensity of the environmental impact due to each of these activities. Okay, so this means the impact related to each of these electricity, water, or food consumed. And as in the case of Unilever for the product, for Accor, it was also not possible to consider the 11 activities in all the hotels of the company, because Accor currently has 3,500 hotels. So from different budget segments and in 90 countries, so it was also for them not possible to get data of all the hotels. So this is why they developed what they call the hotel unit concept. The hotel unit concept is an aggregation of all the hotels that have common brands, common management types, and common countries. Okay, because they also have different types of management types, and they have hotels that are managed directly by Accor. They have franchised hotel affiliation, so they have different models. So they define the hotel unit concept according to these three criteria: the brand, the management type, and the country. And then put together all the hotels that had in common these three criteria and assess all of them together. Okay, because they collect data always when it was possible at the hotel level, but then also at the country level or at the type of hotel level. So it depends, depending on the specific data they were assessing, it was not always possible to collect the data exactly at the same level, but at the end, using different type of assumptions, they were able to define for each of these type of hotel units which was the specific consumption for each of the activities. So according to this definition of the hotel unit and taking into account these three criteria, they defined 360 hotel units and assess the activities for each of them. This was, of course, then very useful for them when trying to interpret the results, to also have, of course, have the data aggregated for the whole company, but also to have this disaggregated data and also not only at the site level, but also for the different types of hotels they have. So they were able to identify some additional information according to that. Okay, so this was regarding the different data collection approaches. And of course, I defined these three data collection approaches, and I think most of the models or approaches that can be defined to collect the data will be included in these three approaches, but we can also discuss if you have other proposals. Okay, and finally, regarding the inventory, of course, also in organizational LCA, we will have multifunctionality issues, and we will have situations where we have a system and we have the impact of a system, but we are not affecting the whole system, and we need to decide which part of this impact is going to be assigned to our system and which part is not. Here we have two examples of the most common situations that we think can appear in or can happen in organizational LCA. For example, when an organization can get information on the inputs and outputs on the impact of a certain supplier, but this supplier is not only providing services or products to this organization, but also to others. So if I get environmental data from this company, I would need to know or to decide which part of the water consumed by this supplier, electricity consumed by this supplier, it's really due to the products that I'm buying to this supplier, and which part is due to the products this supplier is selling to other clients. So this is one of the situations where we can face multifunctionality. Okay, I have a question. In which slide? I am in 71, right? Okay, let me. So you are still, yeah, but I am still at the inventory. I mean, the title of the slide now is inventory relating data to reporting flow, and it's the number 71. Could you confirm that you are also at the right one? Because I am still at the inventory. I will wait 1 minute until I have your answer, because it is strange that you can hear me and you can with this like update it. Okay, but I'm going to change this. If you can change the slides yourself, we don't know what happens, but maybe then I will say you each time I change the slide, I will let you know, and you can just move it yourself. I'm sorry. Yes, maybe now. I think now maybe it works. Please check if you are now at the slide 71. Sorry for that. Okay, I think we pressed a button without realizing. Give you the right to change the slides. I'm sorry. Okay. So as I was here at the Here I was planning some of the specific situations regarding multifunctionality that we can face when applying organizational life cycle assessment. So one of them, yes, you should see the slide 71. You are on the correct one. Okay. So as I said, one of these situations is the case when I get environmental information from one of my suppliers, but this information is aggregated, or I mean, it's for all the products that this supplier is producing. But in the case that I am only buying part of the products of this supplier, I should, of course, not take into account the whole impact of the supplier, but only the corresponding part of the product that I am consuming. So in this case, I need to apply allocation or other options to decide how or which part of this impact I will assign to my system. And another option is, if you can remember, when I was defining reporting organization, I said that in certain cases, an organization may decide not to consider the whole organization, but only one part. In those situations, we can also face that for some of the activities, for example, my share or my part of the organization doesn't have to carry on with all the impact of this specific activity, if this specific activity is giving service or being performed for the rest of the organization. Okay, so and of course, all the other situations that apply to product LCA where allocation is needed, allocation decisions are needed, also apply to organizational LCA. These were only the specific ones related with organizational life cycle assessment. Here you have the options that we can apply to solve these multifunctionality situations. First option would be to look for product level data at the product level, and then to have more specific data and be able to directly know which part of the impact of my supplier, for example, is due to each of the products, and then only take into account the data for the specific products I am buying. Another option is to subdivide the inventory of inputs and outputs as in product LCA. And otherwise, I have to use allocation. I cannot use any of these first two options. I have to apply allocation, physical allocation or economic allocation, as in product LCA. As you can see here, system expansion is not considered as an option for the organizational level, because we think that, and also the ISO, that it's inconsistent, that the data that we can use and the model to define this substitution scenario, when we are talking about a company that is much more complex, can be inconsistent or fully really representative of the organization. Okay, so then let's move to the last two steps of an organizational life cycle assessment: impact assessment and interpretation. Most of the requirements and recommendations, I would say all the requirements and recommendations of product LCA for impact assessment and interpretation are basically the same, particularly for impact assessment. So the selection of impact categories shall, of course, be consistent with the governance scope, consider the stakeholders affected, and reflect a comprehensive range of environmental issues. As in product LCA, classification and characterization are obligatory, while normalization and validation are optional. And one of the already existing impact assessment methods should be used. We don't have here any preferred one, and we don't pick any specific impact assessment. We can choose according to your experience or your criteria which one you think is the best one. But of course, you should choose one that is updated and that that we can apply it to your region, etc. Also, because this is common practice, or we found strong examples where companies were using these other types of indicators, we decided also to consider them as the guidance and to explain a bit them. So one thing is that in certain cases, companies may decide to take into account or to assess inventory level indicators. This means not to consider up to the impact assessment and the impact assessment, but to take into account only inventory data. For example, water consumption or waste produced or energy consumed, because sometimes for the company and for the strategy of the company and for internal reasons, it's better for the company, or they need this data and then they decide to also access this data within the context of organizational LCA. These inventory level indicators can be included in organizational LCA, but it's very important that the company makes very clear and says very clear that these are not impact categories but inventory level indicators. So to present them separately. And also, the company can also may also decide to consider single score impact category indicators that aggregate some of the impact categories. But in any case, companies should present data aggregated and disaggregated. And here you have for the case studies that are included in the guidance, the impact categories that are included for each of them, and also the inventory level indicators that they consider to have an idea. And finally, regarding the interpretation, of course, the requirements for interpretation are the same, but you have to take into account or to have in mind that, again, organizational life cycle assessment is not intended for comparison of organizations when the results are intended to be published. We have a question here. Okay, Alessandra says, are there recommendations about the impact assessment method? You can choose my examples as a recommendation if you want, because I think those are the most consolidated impact assessment methods. But we are not going to pick one specific one, because all of them have positive and negative things, and because we don't want to compare companies between them. We prefer to give this liberty or this option to the company. We have another question, so we will. And now Maria Rosa is also typing. Okay. So again, regarding the interpretation, it should indicate the consistency of the results according to all the aspects and the assumptions defined within the goal definition and scope phase. It's necessary to include, of course, the conclusions, the main conclusions of the study, explain the limitations and how they can affect the results, and provide further recommendations. We have one question here. Okay, Maria Rosa, now are you talking about the impact assessment or about the data collection approaches? I think about the impact assessment. I think none of them is specific for product LCA or specific for organizational LCA. Maybe Matthias wants to add something.
Yeah, I think it's we can share some of the experiences we have with this method. So, but I think it's I would recommend to take that on a bilateral basis, so that overall the guide, we didn't want to, or no one in the group did want to make a generic proposal. But of course, you're right. Your main geographical region, or maybe a certain where you expect certain main impacts, could be criteria on which basis you select the impact assessment method. And I think on a bilateral basis, we are more than happy to discuss that with you. But it was not the intention to give an overall recommendation. But if you say you're completely lost, give us a recommendation, then we can discuss with you which method might fit best for you.
Okay. So if there are no more questions regarding impact assessment, I will come back to interpretation. Yes, so the first bullet point of interpretation here is that, as always, I mean, as an introductory, interpretation should involve an iterative process. That means that we are continuously reviewing the scope while preparing the inventory and while making the impact assessment, and also when interpreting the results. But as you can see, in general, the content and the requirements are very similar to product interpretation. So here we have also again examples for a core and for Unilever for their. Here I put some of the pictures that they are using to communicate their results. We have here, for example, the results for the whole company, for the 5 impact categories considered, and for each of the activities assessed. You have here the absolute value result. And here you can see that the company decides to qualify or to give an indication of the reliability of the results. And this was according to the quality of the data that they are using, and also according to the quality of the environmental factors they are using. So according to certain criteria that is defined in the report, they were able to, as I said, to give this qualifier to the quality of the data. I think this is interesting also. Particularly in the future, if the company decides to apply OLCA again, maybe those activities or those impact categories where they have more red data, that are the ones that need more effort. And also when interpreting the results, they of course should take into account that maybe that data is not 100% variable, and that they should take into account the uncertainty of this data. Here we have the results for different types, different brands of the different hotel brands that are included in a core. Here we have the energy consumption for each of them. And then here we have the contributions of the different activities to the whole impact. And here you have the example for Unilever. They perform the they perform the corporate footprint for carbon, for water, and for waste. And here you can see the contribution of each of the steps of the life cycle to each of the inputs. So let's move on. If there are no more questions regarding the impact assessment, I will start with very quickly with reporting and assurance. In this case, also again the requirements from the ISO 4044 apply, and the same structure and recommendations that for product LCA apply in this case. There is one chapter at the guidance that is also addressing this issue. We have a question. Yes, I hope that at the end of the presentation we will have some more time for other more general questions or questions that were not addressed before. So if that's fine for you, Alessandra, we can discuss it later and now finish with the steps and then, okay, thanks. Yes, so the report should present the study results and other critical information about how the study was performed, what were the assumptions, what was the scope, what was the reporting organization, etc. Particularly for as for product LCA, the report shall include the results and the conclusions of the assessment, of course, and as I said, also methods, assumptions, etc. And specifically for organizational LCA, we have 4 bullets here. We need to clearly define a reporting organization that is being assessed. It's very important, for example, if the company is not assessing all the sites or all the countries where the company has sites. It's very important that it is clearly states the reference period, etc. Which are the activities that are included and which activities are not. When applying performance tracking, it means when comparing the environmental performance of the company in different years, it's also important that if there was a very big change on the structure of the organization or the portfolio of the organization, it's also important to note it, because in order to take it into account when reading the results and when interpreting the results. Yes, we have less than 20 minutes, so yes, I know we will try to be fast now. So yes, so it's also important to specify how was data collected with this idea of the approaches and what data quality was used, etc. Okay, I will move on. Also, this part I will explain it quite quickly because I think it's all these explanations you can find them on the guidance, and anyway they are not maybe so important now as we are more focusing on the methodology. Yes, so I already explained you this idea of the experience-based pathways that can help those organizations that have already applied other environmental tools. So as you will see at the guidance, we have defined 4 pathways. First one is when the company has no previous experience or data. Then pathway 2 is then when the company has environmental data on site. The third one is when the company has environmental assessment at the product level. And finally, the fourth one is when we have corporate information, environmental corporate information, but only for one impact category, for example, and usually it's carbon footprint. So you will see that we have specific recommendations, as you can see here, for each of the steps of the life cycle for each of these situations. So please identify in which of these situations which of these situations you feel identify, and then use our recommendations. Also, we have some specific recommendations for small and medium enterprises, where basically we are saying or noting for which part of the life cycle probably the company will be easier if it's a small or medium enterprise, and can simplify some of our explanations and some of the options we are explaining in the whole guidance. So I think it may be also useful for small and medium enterprises to consider this additional recommendation. And as I said, you can read this part of the guidance, and also because I will share with you the PDF of this PowerPoint, you can also have a look. So I will move directly to the road testing process. As we already said, this is the first task of this project that started 2 years ago. And I have already introduced you a bit, also before when we had our meeting, we already were discussing a bit of what are we expecting of this road testing. But I would like to emphasize what are the reasons for doing this road testing. We want to prove the usefulness of this methodology. We also think, and this is very important, we think that when companies start thinking about applying a methodology, it always helps if they can find examples and case studies where they can see how the methodology and how the theory can be applied in practice, and companies can get some ideas, for example, on how to collect data. So we think that adding examples is very, very useful to promote the guidance and the methodology. Yes, here I have a question that says, when would you advise to apply organizational environmental footprint and OLCA methodology? A comparative study will be. Well, here this was a goal that was asked after setting the road testing goals, because there was some of the road testers that were also interested on applying organizational environmental footprint, and this was why we thought that it may be interesting that one company is applying both methodologies, and that we are able more to compare the methodology, not and of course also the results, but to see where are the main differences. But of course this is not the main goal of the road testing. As I said, this is like an add-on that we decide to add because of the particularities or the characteristics of some of the road testers. So we expect that your experience will also give us some ideas or some hints on how to provide even more specific recommendations for certain situations. Also, of course, to test the specific guidance, and the clarity of the guidance, etc. So, some specific recommendations regarding this process of road testing. Please try to use the guidance document as the backbone guidelines for the application of the methodology. And of course, you can look at other related documents like the ISOs and the greenhouse gas protocol, for example, that they are more than one time references in the guidance. but we would like you to use the guidance as the main document to apply the methodology. Because we are testing the methodology, but also the document. Also, identify which of the experience-based pathways suit you better and consider the specific recommendations. It would be also very useful for us if, of course, when you have specific questions on how to apply the methodology to the organization, you will send emails to us and then we can discuss it. But also, if you have specific comments about the content of the guidance, the clarity, gaps, etc., that you can collect in a list and maybe give to us at the end of the process, that would be also very useful for us to get your feedback. Of course, also probably at the end of the process, we will perform a kind of questionnaire or something to you where you can also provide all this information. But I think that if you start listing this, it will be easier that you don't forget some of the specific issues. Yes, so again, the calendar is in red because, of course, this is the specific dates that are written here can be modified, of course, depending on each company and the needs of each company and how things are going on in the following month and next year. But this is more or less our expected calendar. I already shared something like this with you in our meeting. So we will have 3 main steps after the kicking off of today. First of all, the first report that I explained you that would present first idea of how are you going to map your organization. In this document, we expect you to make first definitions of the scope and of the goal, also to explain which are the goals, which is the reporting organization that you think that better fits your assessment, the reporting flow, the system boundaries. Also start thinking on how are you going to model data collection if you think that bottom-up or top-down approach will be better for you. So here you have a list of specific things that we think that if you start defining them before really collecting data and you share all these modeling or mapping ideas with us before, we can provide feedback and provide recommendations and ideas that may help you before you really make the effort to start collecting data. And I think this may save you some time. Then as I said, by summer, more or less, before summer, spring, summer, we expect to get from you final or complete report. It means that from now to May or June, we expect you to really perform the assessment and to really implement the methodology at your organization, and that you can get some results and the report by that date. But of course, as I said, we will be flexible on that depending on the specificities of the company and the needs of the company. And here you can that, because I think that the experience of some of you can also help to the others. So we can even try to find a way that we can communicate each other and share experience. I don't really think about that, but yeah, I think it could be also a good idea to in at certain points have some of a call together like today and have the opportunity to discuss and to share questions and doubts.
The basic idea is, I think now, because there have been already discussions bilaterally with you, and of course the timeline for the different road testers is also a bit different. So from now, the short-term process is to follow up with you and to agree with you on all your specific plans and schedules, so to say, individually. But then, as Julia indicated at one point, and then because we have the overview, so to say, what is going on, and as soon as we see we have a kind of a stage where it makes sense to share also the current status within the whole group, then we would call for a next web meeting like today.
Okay, great. That's good.
Okay, regarding your second question about the quality of the data, of course, the type of qualifiers and the levels of quality that you want to define are quite open. We haven't really defined any specific way to define the data, and of course, as you said, it's not the same using statistical data than specific data from the sector or specific data from other companies that are similar to mine. This is something that, of course, you can take into account and define levels of quality data within the secondary data, and of course, your experience on using these indicators may help also the others. But at this point, we haven't defined any specific way to deal with that. Regarding the last question, we also have not, the idea is like in product LCA that there is a certain degree of, that companies can decide which is the best way to apply it and to define these different issues. We haven't define on such a detail how to assess the end of life.
And there are actually not even particular challenges for the organizational side, because of course if you assess the use phase of the product, then the end of life phase of the products you produce is one thing. But of course you also, as an organization, you have all the capital goods, the factories, the buildings, as was mentioned also in the ACO example. And so there is, of course, also the specific question. But this is new territory largely. So this is actually where we within the road testing also try to come up with challenges and hopefully then also solutions how this could be tackled.
Okay, that's clear.
Okay, thanks. We already have a few questions here at the chat. First of all, will the list of road testing organizations be published? Yes, our idea is that once we have a final and definitive list of road testers, we plan to make it public as long as you agree with that. We plan to have a kind of at least to put it in the webpage of UNEP, and also to maybe have one short note presenting who are the road testers and some first ideas. Yes, if that's fine for all of you, we will do something like that in the following weeks, months, because we don't. Some of you are already committed and have even already started to perform organizational LCA, but others are still trying to find the resources and deciding if it's possible for them to apply organizational LCA. As Matthias said, you are at different steps on the way of the application, so we will have to wait a bit to make this public, but yeah, our idea is to make this public. Regarding the following question, if we will add a third-party verifier, this is not the idea of the road testing. Of course, we will provide our comments and our ideas and review your report and your assessment, but there is not yet a clear third-party verifier scheme for organizational LCA, and this is not the aim of this road testing. Of course, at the end of the process, you could say that you have been you performed organizational LCA within the framework of UNEP and this project, and this will of course provide you with certain assurance, but it won't be an official general third-party review.
No, that's. I think that's a good question. And just to add to that, so as part of our road testing mandate, as Julia said, we are focusing on the content, but if at the end of the process, you know, everything worked out so fine that you know it's not a big gap to maybe even produce a more formal third-party statement, we can talk about that. But Julia is right that this is not the focus. What we meant with review, this is more on the content related, which is also covered by our
Then there is here a proposal to use a kind of wiki web to work collectively. We will consider this proposal and see if we can apply it, and the other road testers feel that this could help them. Thanks for the proposal. We have then another question from Maria Rosa. They have some specific questions regarding how to develop the databases for organizational LCA. Yes, I think that those questions that are specific regarding how to deal with the methodology for your specific case, I think we can discuss it later in the following week by email or with a call, because we don't have much more time. So I think we should maybe focus on specific questions. So please, Maria Rosa, send me an email and we can try to find out how to solve this. Okay, we also have a proposal to prepare or to create a chatting area. Okay, we will. Yeah, so we will think about that.